Welcome everybody, hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be taking a look at a couple ES44ACs from ScaleTrains in the Rivet Counter line. These are 4 of the 10 Norfolk Southern Heritage paint schemes they have done. The model in the top left there, the Southern, is from a previous release. You can tell the box is slightly different artwork and labeling. But the other 3, the Conrail, Norfolk and Western, and Central of Georgia, are from a release earlier this year, but will match up exactly with the release that is coming out right now in December of 2024. Just to say, the Southern model does not have painted wheels, and the other locomotives do, and they have updated manuals as well. We'll take a look at an unboxing of one of these models and then compare some of the differences between the 3. Before we go ahead and get started, do me a favor, subscribe if you're new, completely free. It helps me to make a couple dollars one day. Like the video if you enjoy, drop me a comment if you found this interesting. Let's go ahead and get started. So if you're asking about differences in identifying the models here, this is the previous release. It's less of a matte than the updated release here. You can tell especially on the label if you're looking like on Facebook or something. This is a lighter, non-bolded with a different format of lettering, and this is the new release. We'll go ahead and unbox the Conrail Heritage unit. I know the Southern is also a fan favorite, but that one I did pick up slightly used, so the unboxing is not what you'll get with a new model. We will of course take a look at that model in detail as well after unboxing this Conrail model. Pretty standard box here. The backside has the road specific details here. They are pretty similar across all 4 models and across all 10 from what I've seen. I don't quite have the money to pick up all of them, so I picked up the 4 models that I like the paint schemes the best. I've just moved in here to go ahead and give us a better view at the unboxing. Again, this model was purchased direct from ScaleTrains. We have the more updated ES44 product manual. You can tell because it's more of a booklet style than the trifold. Here's a look at the function chart that we'll take a look at as well, just for reference in case you're interested here as well. Some good detail in the manual, a little bit more detail than the previous releases had. Some nice foam, as always, in the ScaleTrains Rivet Counter boxes. There's a quick look, pretty sturdy. And we have the standard blister packaging here as well. And this model does have rotating bearing caps. We have a couple extra included in the little baggie. Some soft plastic that's stuck to the top of the container here. And make sure that the truck stabilizers in black are not attached before you put it on flat ground, because it makes the model very unsteady. Then we have 4 handrail protector foam pieces to remove. These are plastic handrails, so you'll still want to be a little careful. This is a very striking locomotive. They really nailed this blue color. And here is a quick 360 for you of 8098, the Conrail Heritage engine. Again, we'll get to the other 3 locomotives that I have as well. After we take a look at some of the details on this locomotive, we'll do a little bit of comparison with that as well. So let's go ahead and get right into that. Alright, so starting off here at the front of the locomotive, where we always begin, we've got a high mounted headlight and lit number boards up at the top there. Got some windshield wipers and numerous grab irons here on the anti-reflective paint alongside the filler hatches there as well. We've got the hole in the nose where the headlight would be on a nose-mounted locomotive, as well as ditch lights that alternate and flash. Got uncoupling levers, nice metal coupler there as well from ScaleTrains. Got some nice train line hoses and silver-tipped MU cables there as well, and a couple extra grab irons there on the front. Here's a zoom in so you can take a look for yourself. We've got nice yellow marking on the steps there, and they are see-through or perforated metal as well. There's a look kind of inside the cab. It's sort of a dull orange-brown color, but it does have desks and chairs modeled in there very nicely. Moving to the side here, we've got wind deflectors on both sides of the windows which don't open, as well as the sunshade there as well. Of course, the beautiful Conrail logo here across the side of the model. The printing's very well done across the entire range of these locomotives. We'll just go ahead and show you the details. You can see the NS label there as well, since we have the Conrail as the primary marking here. Got the dynamic brake housings and extra panels here. The door detail is well done. You can tell that they do sort of come out of the body there. And you can see through the rear radiator section. That is a weight there that you can see hanging inside. Again, plastic handrails here. We got the brake wheel on this side as well as some extra markings across the locomotive. Little fuel gauge there. And the printing looks great. Moving to the rear, since this is a Norfolk Southern model, of course we do have rear ditch lights. We got the Conrail label here once again, as well as another filler hatch and the high mounted rear headlight. We'll zoom in right away, since very similar details to the front. We have a treaded walkway, which is very well done. And of course the metal coupler and some spare knuckle holders on the sides as well. There's a good look for you. And finally, the other side of the model, for consistency's sake, we'll go ahead and zoom right in right away. Trying to keep this quick because we have time to look at each locomotive, but still want to show you the nice features. There's the treaded walkway. We have a blue outline on this side, and then it transitions into a white outline, which I really like that touch. There are some hatches there to access the boxes below the steps as well. We do have a mirror here mounted on the side. We do still have the wind deflectors on both sides, as well as the sunshade. A little bit different details here, of course, on this side of the fuel tank, as well as the builder's plate mounted there. It's legible in person. I can't quite get the camera to focus in on camera here, but it looks pretty nice. The side cab windows are tinted, so it's a little bit hard for me to show you the interior, but it looks nice in person if you get it under the correct light. We do have a lot of danger or warning labels here that you can see. Again, legible in person, not very easy to pick up here on camera. And then looking at the top here, this is the modern PTC antenna in the baby blue or light blue there. ScaleTrains did an earlier release with the original delivery of these units, which had the dome antenna. But this is their current configuration now with the more modern PTC array. So there's a lot going on there. It looks well done. Looks pretty accurate as well, based on pictures I've seen. We've got more warning labels up top. Of course, the horn here and the exhaust stack, as well as the radiator section. Those are metal there in the back, perforated metal. And you can see the fans through there as well. And then we'll get you an underbody shot here as well. Pretty standard, I will say, for ScaleTrains here. We got these see-through steps, and here are those rust-colored wheels on this locomotive. Hard to see in the full shot since it was on its side, the lighting's not perfect. But you can see there are lots of hoses and plumbing that's above the wheels there that run the length of the locomotive, above the fuel tank here, and underneath the cab. There's a look through, you can see right through the steps there as well. So there you go. Let's go ahead and start taking a look at some of the other paint schemes. All right, next up is the Southern Heritage unit. We'll move a little quickly through it here since we already checked out most of the details and they're pretty much all the same in this unit. You saw on the side of the cab, it's labeled 899K. That K is sort of a feature that the Southern Railway used, so it's a nice homage to that railroad here. We'll just go ahead and zoom on in right here at the front. Although this locomotive is from a previous run, you can see at the top of the locomotive we still have the more modern PTC array. Same levels of cab detail here as well. And the Southern Railway logo on the front. Over to the side here, this gorgeous paint scheme. This one really pops. And a train of Norfolk Southern locomotives where they're all black, this one will really stick out. All of the paint schemes look great in Norfolk Southerns, and they look great on ES44s. So I think Norfolk Southern picked a good locomotive for this. They do have some on SD70ACEs, and Athearn has done some of those, except I do not own any of those. Here's the rear as well. Pretty similar levels of detail. Of course, we don't have a plow on the rear of these locomotives, but we do have rear ditch lights that'll flash. And the last side of the locomotive here. The handrails in this model aren't perfect, but that's okay. They are plastic, and this one's a little bit older, so it's a little bit expected. We have different warning label placements here on the roof as well. Same side mirror and wind deflectors on the model. And then of course this locomotive was released before the painted wheels were a thing, so this one does not have those painted wheels that we saw on the Conrail and that you'll see on the other units in this review as well as in the December 2024 release. Pretty much all the locomotive ScaleTrains is coming out with now have those rust-colored wheels. So if you see a model like this, it's from a previous run. Alright, the next locomotive up here is the Norfolk and Western Heritage Unit, number 8103. Here's a look at the front. And I wasn't originally going to pick up this locomotive, but the blue is just so blue. It's so rich, it's so sort of a navy blue, but it looks so good, especially contrasted with the yellow accents. The blue plow and the blue pilot on the rear really tie it all together. And you almost have an FRA yellow stripe all the way across on the bottom here. Like we saw with the Conrail unit, we had a white stripe all the way across. This yellow and the blue go perfectly together. I don't know if I mentioned earlier with the other models, all of these have rotating bearing caps. Here's a look at that rear. Got the Norfolk and Western logo there. And then the final side of this locomotive. We do have a lot less warning labels here on this locomotive, especially on the top. We have virtually none, which is an interesting feature. There's a good look there. Again, PTC antenna array. This one is black and white. There's those etched metal grates in the radiator section, horn as well up on the top of the locomotive. We have the same details on the trucks across all of these locomotives, so I'm not covering those in depth each time. This one, again, has the painted wheels due to it being a newer release. Alright, and the final heritage unit I own is the Central of Georgia. And this locomotive was one I was not originally intending to purchase. I don't know much about the Central of Georgia Railroad. I know a little bit more now, but really why I picked this one up is this color contrast. This is how it looks in real life. I hadn't never seen this before. I still have not. But really the way the black roof ties in with the gray and that same blue from the Norfolk and Western Heritage Unit just looks so good. I did see some videos on Instagram and online of someone running this locomotive, and I thought it looked very, very nice. It looked like it fit in a little bit more than sticking out, sort of like the Southern and Conrail units do, which isn't a bad thing. They look great. Love those paint schemes. But this one almost fits in as if it is some sort of Class 1 railroad, or modern day at least. Here's the final side of the locomotive. And the roof here as well. Let's go ahead and get these on the track and show you the DCC and sound functions. Alright, we're going to go ahead and do the demo here with the Conrail Heritage Unit. I know the Southern's a fan favorite, but since it's from a previous release, I want to make sure you get the most updated sound files demonstrated here, even though I'm pretty sure they are very similar once again. Here's a quick look at the feature list we'll be running through once again, just if you're interested here. It's a little harder to show it on the stand since this is now a vertical manual instead of the horizontal manual. By default, ScaleTrains locomotives will not turn on when the locomotive is placed on the track if the power is already on. So you'll need to press F8 to start up the locomotive here. Keep an eye on the three things that you'll see turning on. We've got walkway lights, ground lights, and the number boards here. So function 8 will start up the locomotive. Function 0 is the front directional headlight here, which is between the number boards, hard to see here. We'll turn on the ditch lights also with function 6. Those are directional as well. They're sort of a bluish white on this locomotive. Function 1 is the bell. Function 2 is the horn. Both the bell and horn sounds can be changed. I think this horn sounds great as is, so I'll be keeping it as it is already programmed. F3 here is the coupler clank. You may have also seen the ditch lights flash with the horn as well. F4 is the dynamic brakes, which we'll take a look at when we're moving. F6, of course, are the directional ditch lights. F7 does not have a function pre-programmed, and of course 8 is the startup and shutdown. F9 is the drive hold, which will keep the locomotive at the speed, but it can ramp up the prime mover instead with your throttle. F10 are the independent brakes, which doesn't do anything here while we're stopped, but that'll just stop the locomotive immediately. F11 is the radiator fan. Pretty hard to hear now, especially as the air compressor will cycle sometimes. F12 is our headlight dimmer, which will completely turn off the ditch lights and just dim the headlight. Bring that back on. F13 is the air dryer. So there's that short let off there, that's all you have pre-programmed in from the factory. F14 doesn't do anything. F15 is the isolation switch, which disconnects the motor drive when it's active, which doesn't do anything here while we're stopped. 16 has no function. F17 is the auto brake set and release, which does not have a sound that'll play. That's the similar thing as the independent brakes when stopped. F18 is the sanding valve. F19 is our short air let-off. Then F20 is the air compressor. And you can hear that cranking for a little bit. It'll also go off automatically while you're stopped or while you're moving as well. F21 is the handbrake. And that handbrake will play as long as you hold that button down. F22 is the cab door. F23 is your engine hood door. Which is neat, sounds like somebody opening the doors on the long hood. You got F24 is the reverser center, which will just lock your throttle controls when it's on. F25 are the cooling shutters. F26 and 27 are our manual notching up and down. So let's go ahead and notch up, and then we'll notch back down with 27. So the notching down happened quite quickly, very quickly after I was pressing F27. F28 is the manual notching logic, which will help you control the manual notching of functions 26 and 27. 29, which I don't have, is load simulation. F30 is the automatic brake, and 31 is the fade out sound. I don't have those functions on my remote. Well, let's go ahead and get this locomotive moving here. So we're already in forwards here, since we have the directional headlight and ditch lights on. Let's go ahead and notch up to speed step 1. We'll hit 2 here. With just the slightest bit of movement at speed step 2. It's a little jerky. Moving up to 3. Almost stabilizing out. And speed step 4, we are buttery smooth. Very nice, slow movement control here as well. Up to 5. Check out those ground lights there as well. Move up to 10 and notch up to 15. So I do have a decent amount of momentum pre-programmed in. Here's a look when we reverse at the rear ditch lights and rear headlight. Here's the horn in reverse. You can see the flashes there. Takes a moment to start moving. And one of the MU hoses is actually a little bit long on this locomotive, so I wanted to demonstrate there as it went over the re-railer that it does drag, so I may have to trim that down or bend that up a little bit to make sure it doesn't get caught on switches and things. There's the dynamic brakes on. And we'll slow her down here. There's a look at the functions. Let's go ahead and give you a quick drive-by of all 4 locomotives. I'll go ahead and show you the shutdown sequence here as well, with 8101 here as well. That was just by turning function 8 off. You can hear the other locomotives in the background also having air let-offs. This locomotive also comes with power packs enabled from ESU. So here's a quick look at the lights for as long as I take it off the track. Get a couple seconds of additional power to help you over imperfect electrical connections or that dirty track. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that DCC and sound demo. Just wanted to wrap up with some final thoughts here with all the locomotives side by side so you can see some of the differences with them all lined up here. I did go ahead and measure all the wheels. They were engaged, all set there. The coupler heights look good. The only complaints I really have on these locomotives is the Conrail unit has essentially trip pins where the MU hoses are a little bit long on the back, so I need to bend those or maybe even cut them down. I do need to turn down the air compressor sounds as well. They come factory at level 100, so I'm not a big fan of that. I think it's way too loud, even when running at slow speeds, and it comes on pretty often. But if you do enjoy that, props to you. You can keep that on. That's just my personal preference here. Some things I forgot to point out as well. If I bring this one up close, the Norfolk and Western unit, all of these have a chain on the conductor side here that is 2 pieces, and it is just plastic. Athearn has started rolling out some metal chains, so it'd be nice to see that make their way onto ScaleTrains locomotives, as well as metal handrails like Rapido, but of course Rapido doesn't make this big 6-axle power just yet, so ScaleTrains is safe for now. Here's a look at those paint schemes for you, just all side by side, give you an overhead shot as well. Of course, the Southern Heritage unit is probably the most popular, and it's pretty evident the current delivery in December 2024 is completely reserved for pre-orders. And speaking of price, the 3 units on the right, once again, did purchase from ScaleTrains directly for $299 each. I think that's a pretty fair price. That's your standard ScaleTrains release for ES44s. Definitely try to pay that price if you can. The Southern unit I did pick up off Facebook a couple months ago since I wanted to complete the set, and they had not announced this new run of ES44s in the Heritage schemes. There are 6 other paint schemes as well. I'm thinking of also picking up the Pennsylvania because I think that one's neat. But then I think I'll have all the Heritage schemes that are my favorites, and then I'll eventually pick up the rest way down the road once I have some more money in my pocket. Another small detail I glazed over is the cab camera here. You can see on the Southern unit, it's gray there. It's a little bit harder to see in the other cabs as it paint matches, but that is also present. Here's a quick roof shot of all the locomotives. As with most ScaleTrains locomotives, I'm pretty pleased with the quality. Their printing, it just looks great. They run very well. The speakers sound pretty good. Some other locomotives I have from them sort of have a popping or a crackling in the speakers, but I think these ones all sound pretty good. So no issues there from me. I also wanted to ask sort of an interesting question here, and I'll preface that I know the lighting isn't perfect and the camera wasn't dead on focused at it. Did you even notice that the Southern locomotive didn't have painted wheels during the run-by? It's a small little detail that adds realism and it's pretty nice to see, but for me it's not a deal breaker. I'm very happy with this unit. I'll keep it even though it doesn't have the painted wheels. It's all about the paint scheme in it for me. So very happy with it, but I don't think it'll ever be leaving the collection. All in all, I definitely recommend these locomotives. ScaleTrains is pretty well known for ES44s, pretty much their current go-to big 6-axle power. I've got a pair of BNSF 25th Heritage GEVOs as well. Very similar levels of detail. Those have some more road number specific details. These locomotives are very similar across these 4 models, and then the other 6 paint schemes are also very similar. There are some variations, but Norfolk Southern picked a series of locomotives that was more similar than the BNSF. I'll go ahead and wrap up this review here before it gets too long. Don't want to waste too much of your time, but I hope this gave you a good look at these locomotives, help you make a decision if you're interested. Definitely, if you got that Southern one on order, that's very exciting as well. If you don't, definitely chase that one down. It's one of the best. If you did make it this far, consider subscribing. Helps me to one day make a couple dollars and it's completely free to you, so I really appreciate it. Like the video if you enjoyed as well, and drop me a comment if you got anything interesting, if you have one of these or one coming in this new run as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.